Hello, and welcome to another jam-packed episode of My Favorite Conservative. I am Edward.
And I am Andrea, but I am not conservative.
You're not?
No, I'm not.
Huh.
But he is my favorite conservative.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. As usual, there's been a lot going on in the world this past week, but nothing was bigger. Wait, are you sure about this next part? I don't know. Nothing was bigger than the State of the Union on Thursday night. I personally did not watch it. I did not. I couldn't do it. However, I have seen many clips of it. But Edward forced himself to watch it and to endure it for the sake of this show. So thank you.
I did. You're welcome. You're welcome, people.
Yeah.
So, first, there was other news this week.
What?
It was Super Tuesday. Am I correct? This
You-
past Tuesday, right?
You mean the Snooze Tuesday?
Yeah, it's Snooze Tuesday. Congratulations to Donald J. Trump and goodbye to Nikki Haley. So, ta-ta, we're done. We can all get over that now.
That was the most boring Super Tuesday ever.
It was the most boring campaign to find a candidate.
Yeah, it was
that
terrible.
I've ever seen. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So
back
anyway,
to the speech. What did
it was a memorable speech.
It was.
Indeed, it was. Yes, I certainly was not disappointed. So
Okay, so tell me what we missed overall. What was your take on the speech?
well, a couple of things. I actually wanted Joe Biden to do well because I think the best chance to defeat Joe Biden is to
Okay.
have Joe Biden in office or to defeat the
Oh,
Democrats.
I see. So he's
So
not
I wanted him to do well enough where he still kept his base,
right.
but poorly enough to show what an imbecile he is. And
Okay.
he came through with flying colors.
He
yes,
did?
Yes, he did. I thought it was one of the most political speeches that I've ever seen.
Okay.
But I the analysis. I mean, to me, I think he sounded a lot like George Washington.
How? Okay. All right. So the analysis that I read
Yeah.
said the speech was riddled with lies. So how does that make it a speech George Washington would give? Are we talking about the same George Washington, father of the country, cherry tree? I
Cannot
can't
tell a
tell.
lie?
Yeah, I
That-
cannot
that
tell a
one?
lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is it like George
Well,
Washington?
okay, maybe I should have been a little bit clearer.
Okay.
Joe Biden, he mispronounced, he slurred half of the speech.
Okay.
And since,
But that's typical for him.
well, yeah, but since George Washington, if everybody recalls their schooling, he actually wore wooden dentures. And I imagine that's what he would have sounded like.
I think you're insulting George Washington right
Yes,
now.
yes.
I really do.
Yeah, his speech wasn't Washingtonian. It probably sounds like somebody with wooden false teeth would actually sound like. So
Okay.
a little clarity there.
All right.
As for the lies
Yes.
in the speech, it was about as far away from George Washington as you could get. And, I'd like to focus on those lies today. And we're not going to go over all of them because we'd be
There
here.
were too many.
Yeah, we'd be here for quite a while. So we just wanted just to show how disingenuous the speech really was.
Okay. All right. So what were some of your, just before we get into the lies,
Yeah.
initial takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, to me, it sounded like a campaign speech.
Yeah.
It sounded like,
What little I watched.
yeah, I need to rally my base.
Yes.
And to do that, I'm going to just put up all Democrat talking points. There was absolutely no unity in this speech whatsoever.
For the State of the Union.
Yes,
address.
the union is. How's the union doing for all of us? And what's really telling to me is in a State of the Union, you put things in priorities in order that you kind of feel are more important. And the first two things that he talked about, number one was sending money to Ukraine.
Yes, I heard a pundit say that. That was the first thing he said.
Yeah, so that is his most important item for our country is we have to fund Ukraine. The disconnect here is unbelievable, but that's his right to do so. Number two was actually January 6th. And
That's not a surprise though.
but
He would
that
talk
is
about
just
it.
pure left-wing Democrat base stuff. It is people sitting at home suffering in this economy could not care less about January 6th and Hitler and we're losing democracy and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. So
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to cover some lies, and not all of them, but we're going to talk about them sort of in order of least to most important to us.
Mhm.
And we are linking to Sean Fleetwood at the Federalist for pointing out some of these lies. We'll make sure that is in the show notes. So thank you, Sean. The first one, because I think this is sort of a minor point, I'm going to share this one. Is that all right?
Yeah,
First one was the president claimed, hello, watching live. Thank you so much. The president claimed there are 1,000 billionaires in the U.S. You know, according to Forbes, there are 735 billionaires in America as of 2023. So to me, yeah, that's a lie, but it's kind of a minor one.
But if you're a speechwriter, don't you actually check your numbers if it's going to be in the State of the Union?
They just rounded up. They rounded up.
I guess.
They rounded up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was related to this was Biden falsely claimed that the average federal tax rate for said billionaires is 8.2%. The richest Americans pay an effective tax of more than 20% on the income the government counts under the current tax code. So that's directly from the IRS. So, you know, to me, not huge lies, but
it isn't. But
it's the billionaire package.
But what he was doing on building with this is he tried to say that he is going to tax billionaires and he's going to raise $500 billion from them over the next 10 years. Okay.
So 50 billion a year.
50 billion a year. Let's do a little math.
Okay.
All right. We are currently $3 trillion deficit. All right. $3 trillion is 3,000 billion. Okay. 3,000 billion. We are underwater. And he thinks that 50 is going to somehow make a difference. So we're only going to be 2,950,000 billion short every year.
Okay, so that was a lot of math for people. All right, especially if you're like me and you're visual and you need to actually see the math. But basically, you're saying it's a drop in the bucket and it's not going to fix the problem.
Correct. Okay. And it's going to cause all kinds of economic mayhem because trust me, billionaires don't give up their money easily. And they will stop investing and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, no. And they'll move their residence outside the U.S. Yep. I mean, yeah, they will. So, all right, give us the second one.
Well, Biden, he falsely asserted that, quote, he taught the Second Amendment for 12 years.
Yeah, where did you teach second? First of all, where did you teach? I mean, I know he had an appointment, but also, when did you teach the Second Amendment for a dozen years?
Yeah, he took a big salary from the University of Pennsylvania.
I remember that.
Where the Penn Biden Center is, think tank, and took a big salary, never showed up to actually teach a class, but somehow says he has taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. It is beyond...
And we just want to point out, interrupted, sorry. All right, just want to point out that if he had taught the Second Amendment for 12 years, then he might not have said the next thing. So he claimed that a ban on so-called assault weapons doesn't constitute a violation of the Second Amendment.
So
which is it?
You can ban guns,
right?
But that doesn't violate the Second Amendment,
which you
have taught. What he's taught it for 12 years.
He taught it for 12 years. So yeah. So I don't know. Again,
it is just in your face. It is the dreaded assault, weapon. By the way, every weapon known to mankind, to humankind, is an assault weapon. You can assault somebody with a weapon.
So. Yes, you're being very literal there.
But
you know what people mean by that. And we don't have time in the show to go down that rabbit hole. Okay.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, it's a whole nother show. Okay. I got to do this next one. So we just talked about this last week. So Biden falsely contended that the Alabama Supreme Court, and we live in Alabama right now, shut down IVF treatments across the state. And actually, right after that ruling came down, Alabama's highest court said that embryos are people with inherent value, but they're not legal property. So there was a reversal almost immediately. Am I getting it right? Well, kind of saying it the right way?
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying is that the Supreme Court shut down the IVF centers.
Alabama Supreme Court.
Yeah, Alabama Supreme Court. Yes, sorry. They did nothing of the sort. They just ruled that embryos are humans. And now, are the results of that IVF centers said we can't operate like this? Yeah, but there was not a ruling that said you need to shut down.
But the legislator came right back.
2 days later,
2 days later, this
the
is the
Republican Congress representatives and the Senate passed the bill that said that gave IVF that the actual embryos are the building blocks, or if you will, or a partial life, if you will.
But they said that embryos are life once they are inside
correct.
The uterus.
Yes.
So,
yeah, they're basically a component that goes into making life.
Yes. So, for him to say that and not give the second piece was very disingenuous.
Yeah. Well, he knew it, and all the IVF centers are back up and running.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I mean, there was a pause. There's a pause for a week. And I think if you watched our show or listened to us enough, you know that I'm pro-choice, or as Edward likes to say, pro-abortion, and he's pro-life. And so we vastly disagree on this issue. But the point is that Biden was very disingenuous on that. All right, give us the next
hard to
lie.
believe. Well, let's stick with the reproductive rights thing. So
yes.
Biden claimed the life of Kate Cox, a Texas woman who left the Lone Star State to obtain an abortion, was, quote, at risk during her pregnancy.
Okay.
Now, her unborn child that was inside her was actually diagnosed with something called trisomy 18, which is a condition associated with severe developmental delays. Now, sometimes these children actually live up into their 20s. It's not a long life, but a lot of them die young, things like that. But she was not at risk. And the Texas Supreme Court said she could not have an abortion. She was 20 weeks pregnant when she filed the suit. And she actually went to another state and got the abortion. So, which
that's fine that she did that. She made that choice. But yeah, to say that it was, again,
her life was at risk.
Her life was not at risk, but she knew that her baby, if she went through with the pregnancy, was going to have some very serious, issues throughout life.
Correct.
And so that's a choice she made, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, her life was not at risk during the pregnancy.
Correct.
Okay. I got to take this next one.
Let her rip.
All right. So he regurgitated the falsehood that conservatives are banning books. Conservatives are not banning books. Conservatives are coming forward and saying perhaps some books should not be in libraries, in school libraries, because they are not meant for children. And I don't believe in banning books of any kind. And I'm a writer and a reader. But if you want to see what some of these books are that many parents have said, hey, these don't belong in school libraries, you need to watch The War on Children. It's a new documentary out by Robbie and Landon Starbuck. You can watch it for free on X, and I'm sure there are other ways that you can watch it. We watched it last night.
Yep.
And I had heard about the books, but I had not actually seen the books and seen the pages. And a lot of these books are really sexualizing our children.
They are graphic.
They're very graphic, and they're graphic novels, almost comic books, and for an old school term there that they don't say anymore, but they are very graphic, and they're not appropriate for children. Now, if a parent in the privacy of their home wants to have these books, that's fine, but they are not age appropriate. And what I find fascinating about this is for 10 years, I did a biannual book drive in memory of my sister for her middle school. And one of the things that we always stressed was that the books had to be appropriate for middle school age children. These books, many of which are now in elementary schools, are not appropriate for children, period.
Yeah, you have to be far, far on the left to think this material is appropriate for school age children. Now, I will say, in speaking to our friends on the left out there, when a book is banned, it means you cannot get that book anywhere.
Right.
So every one of you people out there that want to buy these books, go on Amazon, go on wherever, you can buy the books.
Yeah, you can.
They do not belong in schools.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah, so you can buy the books. All right. Give us another one. And again, please, if you're watching live on YouTube. Sorry, so I'm tired today, guys. Sorry. If you're watching live on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Rumble, or Facebook, we should be able to see your comments in real time. So please feel free to comment as we go along, and then we will spotlight you. All right, so what's the next one, Edward?
Well, Biden claimed that the border deal that was negotiated last week by the Senate leadership contained, quote, the toughest set of border security reforms we have ever seen and would, quote, bring order to the border.
All right. Why are you laughing?
That bill, first off, the only reason that they even want to talk about the border is because the Republicans are holding their feet to the fire and saying, if you want to fund Ukraine, you got to fund the border and you got to shut it down.
Right.
So
but doesn't the Biden administration blame the Republicans for not passing a bill about the border?
Yes.
And how come the Republicans refuse to pass it?
Well,
for those who may not know.
Well, first off, the Republicans passed as their second order of business the first week in office that they took control, a border control bill. The Senate put it on the shelf and is yet to bring it up.
Okay.
This particular bill, it was a bipartisan commission, and it was disingenuous at best.
Tell the people what it had in the bill.
Well, it had, let's see, what was the number? 7,000 illegals a day until they would pause anything on the border, any more people coming on the border. It had all kinds of boondoggles in it where the president or the Homeland Security secretary had the option to close the border or to reopen the border. There were so many.
Wasn't there also funding for Ukraine?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, that's what the whole thing's about.
So that's the problem, is that, and a lot of conservative politicians have spoken up about this and said, we don't want Ukraine funding to be mixed in with a border bill.
Right.
It should be separate.
Right. And this border bill, like I said, it had like 5,000 or 7,000 a day would be allowed. How about zero?
Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Republicans who supposedly negotiated in good faith got their asses handed to them by the base.
That happens a lot to the Republicans, I gotta say.
It does. Yeah. I mean, people are saying Trump said no, and good for Trump. Yeah, this was a ridiculous bill, and I'm glad it got shut down.
You led us right into the next one. So Biden claimed former President Trump, whose name he did not use during the State of the Union. I think he just said previous guy. Or he
slurred my predecessor.
Edward can do great voices, great imitations. So he claimed that President Trump told Vladimir Putin, do whatever the hell you want regarding Russia's invasion of Eastern Europe. Edward, can you elaborate what the actual context was for that?
Yeah, the context of that quote was they were asking Donald Trump about NATO and the countries in NATO not paying their annual dues, which is 2% of their GDP, which very few of them still do or don't do. And Trump said, if they don't pay, don't expect to be protected by NATO. So if you don't pay your dues, don't expect the benefits. And he said they can do whatever the hell they want, meaning the NATO countries, they can do whatever they want, but don't expect us to help you. He did not say to Vladimir Putin, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Absolute out and out lie.
Got to put in context. Yeah. So he also said, and I knew this was a lie without even looking it up, but he said his administration had created 15 million new jobs. Really?
Yeah. Well, two words in there, created and new.
Okay. All right.
Well, obviously we have come out of COVID, right? And when Biden took over, we'd been a year into COVID. And guess what? The economy, had shut down well over 10 million jobs. And people, guess what? Came back to work.
So he didn't create new jobs. It's people came back to work.
Correct. Yeah. And they count those as new jobs.
Of course they do.
Yes.
Under his administration.
Correct. Yes. So no, you didn't.
Yeah. And I think this next one relates as well. The president said that consumer studies show that consumer confidence is soaring. No. It actually fell from is that 106.7 from a revised 110.9 in January. So consumer confidence has fallen. Where's that 106 number in context? I don't get it.
Well, it's a difficult number because it's based on a lot of different things, but it's been as high as 150 and stuff. So yeah,
so it's been higher in the past.
Yeah, it had been creeping up a little bit,
Okay.
But now it's starting to reverse the trend. And when he said this, it was just a lie, because when consumer confidence falls, you can't say that it went up.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty simple there. Yeah.
All right, give us the next one, because this is a good one.
Well, he falsely claimed that he cut the federal deficit by over $1 trillion. I think he actually repeated 1 trillion. Mm-hmm. And has been delivering real results in a fiscally responsible way.
Okay, I just want to interject here. No politician in recent years has been fiscally responsible. Trump wasn't, Biden wasn't. Correct. Both sides, guys. Neither one has been fiscally responsible. But go ahead and elaborate.
Well, coming out of COVID, where we had huge expenditures for the vaccine, everything else, and all the other stuff that we spent with it, because we didn't spend as much the next year because COVID was gone, he thinks he cut the deficit. Okay. Now, here's the way Washington works, and it's always a great example. So a politician's going to say, we spent $80 million on a program last year. We plan on spending $120 million on it this year, but we actually only spent $100 million on it.
So
we cut the budget
by
20%. No, you didn't. You increased it 20%. But that's what Washington does when they work off their baseline budgeting.
Okay, so in fact, how much has the debt risen since he's been in office?
Over $6 trillion.
With a T.
That's a T. Yes.
All right.
$1 trillion.
And again, I think if there's an Achilles heel for both Biden and Trump, if there's a reason to vote for anyone else who had a chance, but I don't think RFKJ, is it RFK?
RFKJ
does, but both of them mishandled COVID, and both of them increased the debt. And they have that in common, and I think people on both sides need to recognize that.
Yeah,
they do have that in common.
Completely agree.
This is a great, guys. This is a great one. And again, we can back this up in the show notes. So if you are listening to the podcast on Monday, if you're watching it live right now, got to wait till tomorrow, but it'll be in the show notes. So he claimed that the U.S. has the lowest inflation rate in the world.
For him to actually bring up inflation,
I know,
I
can't believe that they let him put that word in the speech.
Yeah. So, there are literally dozens of countries that have a lower inflation rate than the United States. There is no question about it.
Yeah.
They're bragging that when COVID ended, people were going back to work. And by the way, if you recall, in the third quarter of Trump's last term, when we were coming out of COVID, the economy grew at 33%, which is so far off the charts.
Yeah.
Normally if you get 3%, you're excited. It grew at 33%. The next quarter it grew by 5.6%, which is incredibly healthy. Biden comes into office. What does he do? Passes the American Rescue Plan and puts $1 trillion extra into the economy. And immediately what happened, within 6 months, interest rates had gone from 1.4% when he took over to 9.3%. And they brag that inflation is down from 9.3 to 3.6 or whatever it is now, 3.4.
Yeah, but you increased it. You got it there. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And actually, I just saw the stat this morning that in Biden's term, overall inflation is up 17.97%, 18%. And that is on everything. Now, if you look at just actual goods and services that people need, food and gas and things like that, it's well over 35%. So yeah, please don't give us this crap on inflation. You blew it.
All right. And number 12 on our list, if you're counting, Biden falsely claimed that the COVID jabs are now being used to help beat cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in what context did he mean that?
When he said that, I think everybody scratched their head and said, "What in the hell is he talking about?" For some reason, he thinks now that somehow the mRNA that was developed for COVID or that was used during COVID is now going to cure cancer. If there is, I haven't heard it. I've researched it. I have not seen anything.
We'd like to learn
it.
more. So yeah, if you know of any studies with mRNA, is it NA?
mRNA.
Okay. If you know of any studies with mRNA, actual clinical trials going on in relationship to cancer, we would love to know.
But just remember that every election season, whether it's presidential election or a midterm, right before the election, Biden claims we're going to cure cancer.
Well,
he always does.
This has been going on since Nixon.
No, but Biden flat out says we're going to cure it.
I know,
and,
but this has been
I'm going to cure cancer.
This has been going on for my entire life, though.
No, but usually politicians will say we need to fight this. We're funding it. We're doing whatever. Biden flat out says, I'm going to cure cancer.
But he's not the only one who ever said that. He's not the only president who ever
he's
said
the only president that has said, I'm going to cure cancer without question.
Oh, well, I would like
actual
to look
verbatim.
At that.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'd like
Google it, let me know. I know I'm right. I know I'm right on this one.
Okay, well, I think President Nixon said the same thing. Maybe he didn't use the word cure, maybe he used the word end, but he's the one that started the whole,
There's a difference between saying, I'm going to cure cancer and we need to find a cure for cancer. There's a big difference.
Okay, that's true. Yes. Okay, fair enough. All right, number 13, what we consider the biggest lie that Biden told during the State of the Union address. Give it to us, Edward, please.
Well, he said that January 6th posed the gravest threat to American democracy since the Civil War. When earlier in the show here, we talked about the two things that he brought up immediate. One was the Ukraine stuff, and the second was this, January 6th. And he went into this serious mode that democracy almost fell on January 6th, but we held firm. It's so stupid that what do you mean democracy almost fell? So the guy in the Viking hat sitting in the chambers, do you expect like the Joint Chiefs of Staff to go, that's it, he got us, let's go turn over the keys? And what the hell are you talking about?
I think AI is going to kill democracy before people who were at January 6th.
And this is coming from the party that wants to investigate and kick off the ballot your main political opponent. Let's talk democracy, for crying out loud. It is so far from the truth. I mean, we've had World War I, World War II, all kinds of wars in between. Was Hitler, I think, a little more of a threat than Donald Trump?
Well, some people think that Donald Trump is Hitler.
Well, yeah, I think that's the Trump derangement syndrome, which is an absolutely real and debilitating thing for leftists because it just clouds their mind. It's like they get chemo brain, whenever Trump is brought up.
No, that's not a good analogy. I don't think
I tried since we were doing the cancer thing.
I know, but that's not how chemo brain works. So I don't think that's a good analogy. But anyway, all right. So those are the top 13 lies. Certainly not all of them in the State of the Union address, which was more like a stump speech. I think we need to call out though, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because I saw this clip, you saved this for me. He said, you got to see this one part. I was like, no, I don't want it. He's like, no, you got to see it. So there was this moment, and I highly recommend you look it up, guys, if you didn't watch the State of the Union. There was this moment where it was really clear that Biden wasn't just losing his train of thought, like he was going to zone out completely. Yeah. Like the synapses were not, firing. There was this moment. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, God bless her, my God, and that's not a compliment, Marjorie, decided in that moment to start yelling, and it actually got him back on track.
Yeah, it was
well intentioned.
Yeah, right before he kind of looked down to his right, and he started zoning out, and he started saying, and
then he said something about
I
don't know. Yeah, it was weird.
And then she started screaming at him. and about Lake and Riley, the young lady that was
Yes.
killed by the illegal immigrant.
Right.
And he immediately turned to her, and like the lights went back on.
I know, it
and
refocused him. Marjorie.
But what I thought kind of was fascinating was, so she's wanting to say her name.
Right.
He lifts up the button that Marjorie Taylor Greene had given him as he was walking in,
Yeah.
then mispronounces her name into
Yes,
Lincoln.
Yes.
But then he says, I've been killed by an illegal immigrant, and how many people have been killed by illegal immigrants? And it's like, yeah, Joe, that's what we're telling you.
That's the whole point.
And then, of course, this week, these last couple of days after the speech, the left and the media, which I repeat myself, were just apoplectic that he used the word illegal.
Yeah, they didn't
and
like that.
And that's all they want to know about it. They don't care about the girl that got killed. They don't care, any of the crime, anything like that. But God forbid you use the word illegal.
Yeah. Well, I just want to shout out to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think you might be a spy. I think you might be working for the Democrats, because he would have completely, it would have been a disaster. It would have been a disaster if you had not decided in that moment to start shouting. I'm okay with you shouting. I'm okay with you say her name. But man, just let him fall apart, let him fall apart right there. Like, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, that and one other thing with her, she's an effective legislator, but sometimes she takes things a little too far.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I believe there is a rule that there are no hats allowed on the floor of Congress.
That's a shame.
And she had her Donald Trump MAGA hat on with the full.
She was dressed
T-shirt, everything else, and that just wasn't the place for it. I just don't
stay classy.
If you start yelling at Biden, that just gives the Democrats open season as soon as Trump's sworn in when he gives the next State of the Union to just scream at him too.
Yeah.
And that's not a good game to play.
All right, so back to our favorite segment. Last week we did a new segment. This week in WTF, or what the fuck. We're going to go back to our regular segment, this week in woke.
Ah, yes. Now this is from our good friend Eric Utter at The American Thinker.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Great website. Love the website.
Okay.
This is about John Kerry.
Yeah, I know you're a huge fan.
John Kerry, to me, is the most pompous buffoon politician in my lifetime. I think he comes across as so arrogant and so condescending. And he personally has never made like a penny in his life. He just has married well.
Okay, I will say for our viewers in full disclosure that I campaigned for John Kerry, actually campaigned working with Planned Parenthood in 2004. So, yeah. I almost want to apologize for that, but
Yes. So okay. Anyway, John Kerry, he is now the quote U.S. Special Envoy on Climate, and he was giving a speech where he was discussing the Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay.
Now here's the quote. It's a good one. He says, I believe, I won't do the whole John Kerry voice.
Okay, all right.
He says, I believe that Russia has the ability to be able to make enormous changes if it really wanted to. I mean, if Russia has the ability to wage a war illegally and invade another country, they ought to be able to find the effort to be responsible in the climate issue.
Maybe they don't want to.
Continue. He says, unfortunately, because of the actions that Russia took in an unprovoked, illegal war against another nation, we have not been engaged in discussions with Russia, sadly. I say sadly because it's a loss for the world not to be able to have Russia acting constructively on this issue. We need every country, including Russia. Russia is one of the largest emitters in the world. If Russia wanted to show good faith, they could go out and announce what their reductions are going to be and make a greater effort to reduce emissions now. And maybe that would open the door for people to feel better about what Russia is choosing to do at this point in time.
I got to say something.
Please.
All right, Mr. Kerry. Russia doesn't give a shit. about climate change. I got news for you. Putin doesn't give a shit.
No.
Neither does China, and neither does India. They do not care. It's not a priority.
Yeah, you're fighting a war, and the last thing on your mind is, gee, am I emitting greenhouse gases that could, make the world go crazy in 1,000 years?
Yeah, Putin wants to take Ukraine. He wants Ukraine. He doesn't care about the climate. Just be realistic.
The only good thing out of this is that John Kerry has announced his retirement. Yay. So, and fortunately, he'll be out of a job as soon as Biden loses. But he is one of the most pompous asses in terms of a hypocrite, where he's flown on his private jets forever.
For years.
And his response was, I don't personally own a private jet. Well, guess what? Your wife does.
Owns the jet. Yeah, that counts.
Come on. And we're fighting this. Don't get me started on the whole climate stuff, but to expect countries that are fighting a war to worry about their emissions is ludicrous.
But also just to expect some countries to care.
Yes.
China doesn't care.
And the only reason Ukraine would care is because we put pressure on them and they want our money. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That wasn't fun. This Week in Woke is usually fun.
It wasn't. Yeah, I didn't really find any ha-ha stuff out there.
No,
so I just, anytime I can take a shot at John Kerry, though, you have to. He's such an easy target.
I believed in you, John. I believed in you in 2004. I did. I busted my ass and campaigned for you. Yeah.
I'm so glad to see the growth.
Oh, please, really? Come on.
It is. It's you now realize what John Kerry is. Am I correct?
Have I said that?
I think you realize what a pompous ass he is.
He is a pompous ass. I do realize that. At the time, in 2004, I wanted him over Bush. I did.
Well, Bush was Hitler.
So
Bush Hitler. Remember they started that with Bush.
They must love Bush now.
Oh, yeah.
They would give anything to have Bush for a third term instead of Trump. Oh my God, in a million years. Okay. Anything else before we close?
Too many things. So
too many things.
Let's end it.
All right. Thank you for joining us live today. I see a couple people have been watching but not commenting. Please follow us on all social media platforms. So we are live most Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm glad we're back in daylight savings time, but I did miss that hour of sleep. Like I really did. So we are live on YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, available wherever you're listening right now. Remember, the podcast always drops the Monday after the live show on Sunday. And please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, rate and review on either Apple, Spotify, or Podchaser. So please be sure to do that. We are still working on our locals community. If that's something you're interested in, also let us know, because we're gauging the interest right now. And you can find us at myfavoriteconservative.show. I mean, the banner's going across the bottom of the video right now. That's myfavoriteconservative.show. And that's where you can reach out to us.
All right. Keep the comments coming. We love a good chuckle.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching live. Bye-bye.